So a couple of weeks back, Launch very kindly sent me their Launch Creader Elite, and I've been playing with this and doing comparisons with my favorite little iCar soft. It's a lovely bit of kit, it's touchscreen, it's bi-directional, and during those videos I happen to mention that what would be a really good comparison is to see what Launch's bigger brother is, because I've got one of these Autel Maxicom diagnostics. And guess what? Launch have done exactly that. Thank you so much, and they very kindly sent me their Launch X431 Pro Elite. So that's my little challenge today, is to find out just how good this is and how it compares against my Maxicom.
Let's move on, 'cause it's time to move on.
Let's have a look what's in the box. Ooh. Well, straight away, let's start about the visual comparisons and the hardware itself. They look pretty similar bits of kit. And there she is. On the subject of hardware, let's talk about what this thing has got. It's Android 7.1. It's got a 6600 milliamp hour battery, so you get really good battery life. It does 100 plus different brands of cars. It does pretty much every single car on the planet. You also get a 2-year free update on this as well, for all the different models that you may or may not have. And it's got its Wi-Fi and Bluetooth connectivity, of course, so that you can go on the internet and you can look at codes, and also you can do all your updating and everything as well. Hardware-wise, it comes with this nice little handy stand so that you can work on the bench, but at the same time, you can also hook that on the top of the steering wheel, and it's brilliant. And we're getting straight into the comparison here, because that's exactly what my Autel Maxicom has got as well. Looking at the two of them, this one is definitely the larger screen, but does it actually perform any better than this? So I'm going to put it on the car, I'm going to do a real test just to see what this can do and put it through its paces. But just give you an idea, this thing does fuel injection programming, it's got full global DCT testing, it's also got DPF on it where you can do your diesel particle filter regen, and does the bi-directional, so you can hopefully try and clear physically any blockages. You've also got key immobilizer programming on this, along with things like automatic VIN recognition, live data graphing, so you compare different elements. You've got things like ABS bleeding, steering angle sensor. But anyway, you want to hear me talk about it, let's physically see. So here's your first page, the first screen that comes up. Oh, it looks by, we can have all the different apps here, so obviously it looks and behaves just like a tablet. It's high definition screen, and it's Android 7.1. So things like browser, obviously just stick in your Wi-Fi, and then you can use it just like you would do a tablet. And of course you can look up codes, etc., and all that. So let's test out the search and see how fast it is, because it's got a 2.1 gigahertz processor on it. Let's type in me, see what it finds. Goes into Google. Oh, there I am. And there's me. So it all works very nice. Let's see if it works on the videos and see how much the... There we are, look. All very good. Tap to unmute.
Clearing. And turn it back on again.
Right, okay, well, enough of that.
And it's completed. So that's good.
Okay, good. Well, that all works lovely. I was thinking it might be a bit laggy, but by the looks of things, it's nice and quick. Great. Right, let's go back and do some diagnostics. So what do? Go back to Home. And let's go into the Pro X431 Elite. Right, couple of things to note. When you get your device, you're going to get given a activation code, and it's important that you don't throw any of the documents that came with it, because inside there is your paper activation code. Now I've done that, and it's given me the option now to update all of the software. I'm not going to do it because it's going to take all day, but I got 43 things to update. For example, the key programmer module, I can update that there. It's got an oscilloscope where you can buy an external device. It's also got things like a video scope as well. And then it will go into different cards where you can update all of that. Now, I'll do that later on, because I say there's 43 things to update. So for the activation codes, just behind this panel here, and inside all the literature, you'll find this here. This is my serial number. When you open the perforations, you'll find your activation code. So don't go throwing any of the paperwork away, because you'll need that to get your 2-year updates. Now I've got this plugged into a car. I'm going to do it in just a second. But one of the things I wanted to show you was, not many people have talked about this before, but there's an excellent little demo, and it's going to show you, just as if you've plugged it into a vehicle, what this thing can do. So just to give you a quick overview of the cars that this can diagnose, if I press all there, yeah, obviously they're all going to come up. It categorized it along the top into regions around the world: the Americas, Europe, Asia, and Chinese. If I go into America, it's going to tell me things like Buick and Cadillac and Chevrolet. We don't really see a huge amount of those elsewhere, but obviously there's a huge amount of them in the US, so importantly they're there. Europe, you're going to have everything from Alfa Romeo, Aston Martin, Audi, and it goes all the way up to like Rolls-Royce. For Asia, you're going to have probably a lot of cars which may be crossed over into the likes of Australia. There we go, look, Thailand, India. And then China, well, you know, China, the top of the game at the moment for car manufacturing. There's an awful lot of cars that they produce, and you may find over the years that we start to see more and more of them in different parts of the world. Right, so if we go back to, say, Europe, for example, there's a demo function here. And if I press OK, this is going to do a demonstration as if this is going to then talk to the car, and I've got my OBD cable plugged in. So let's say, for example, I choose one. I go into Honda. So these three menus here are actually exactly the same as my launch Creader Elite. The interface is obviously the same because of the launch company. The health report, that actually is as it sounds. It does a report so that if you're working in a garage, you can run that through like it is here. I don't know if it's going to be that quick because this is a demonstration. You can then print it, you can email it, and you've also got all of the units that this launch can find and talk to with the respective car. For example, it's picked up there that all the ones in green at the bottom are the ones that have passed, and all the ones at the top are the ones that you got a fault with. And when I compare that with my Autel Maxicom, that's exactly the same. It does the same idea, and it puts all of the ones with faults at the top of the list. So let's go into the first one there. It's talking about the PGM F1 diesel engine system, and it says there air fuel ratio sensor 2 malfunction. Right, so let's enter that. So it's giving me these options of what you want to do. So before we start clearing codes, let's have a look at, say, the special function. Right VIN, replace ECM, PCM, and throttle learning. If I go into that, it gives you the warning first to reset the throttle learning. Then it tells you what you need to do. Stop the engine, ensure the gear shift is in neutral, set the parking brake. Does the communication. TP learning value has been cleared. Clean the throttle body. Refer to the service manual. So this is a great little demo if you wanted to know how to actually use it before you plug it into the car. Let's go into, say, reading data stream now. What you got here is the ability to be able to select certain items. Let's select the top 4 there. And it's going to show you what those values are compared to each other. So as if we're driving along, it's got the engine speed there, CLV value, map sensor, and vehicle speed. Now, it's got a graph option here, so you can select that, and you can see it's going to give you real-time information. So let's say then that you wanted to compare all those items. You can press graph at the bottom here, and it will put it for you on 4 separate graphs, which is nice. But if you want to combine those, you've got that option there as well. And there we go, they're all running nicely together. You do up to 4, otherwise it gets a bit busy on the screen. But you can see that it's giving you, the blue one is 29.76, the engine speed is fluctuating there, res per minute, and then your map sensor at 30 kilopascals. Okay, importantly, let's go into read the fault code. There we go, it's giving me the DTC, which you can then look up, so let's do a code search. It's going to go straight to Google, obviously put your Wi-Fi in, and it's going to give you a Google search just as if you do it on your computer or on your phone. And you can have a little look and see where you want to go with that. So let's say now you've got these 2 codes and you want to show this to the customer, but the customer can't make it in. You can press report. You can then enter the customer's details and email it or send it. Right, so let's go back and let's go clear fault code. Are you sure you want to clear fault code? Yes. Clearing fault code complete. Okay. So then we go back. We can now see that that code is gone and we only have one code remaining. Adaptive cruise control, let's have a look at that one. Let's go into special function and see. Radar aiming. There's a calibration there, that's pretty good. Next step. If the calibration process is not completed correctly, the ACC indicator light shall go on. Well, let's press next. This is just a demo after all. First, perform the vertical aiming procedure. Park the vehicle in a suitable location for the aiming procedure. Do not set up the aiming target yet. Ensure that no obstacles are within that space range. Let's press OK. And it even gives you a little demo. That's nice. A little idea of what you need to do. So you're doing it all right. Tells you there the calibration settings and what you need to do. Distance L from triangle cone to center point of front wheel hub is 4,000 millimeters or 157.5 inches. Right, let's press next. Look at that. Tells you the different specifications that you need to set and aim for. A bit like setting your lights on the car. Then you press calibrate. Step 1. Move the target to the Y1 position marked on the supporting rod. That one there. Step 2. Step 3. The angle or the radar unit to the target is 0.1 degrees. Allowable range is 0.1 to 0.1 minus plus. Next, perform horizontal adjustments. Calibrate. Turn the ignition off. Turn it on. The radar aiming has been completed. You've also got a function here at the bottom which is clear DTCs, and it will do everything in one hit. But I recommend go into each one individually so that you get real understanding of what the issues are. Now that was health report. So if I go into system scan now, the system scan is just going to find all of the modules that this launch can talk to on your vehicle. So there you go. You can see that all these items with equipped are all the units that you have on your car. Let's say go into ABS. It's not going to see a fault code because there isn't one. By the way, this is just a demo. But you got things like actuation test there. So you can run a hydraulic pump motor test, for example. And you press on or monitor. Let's go monitor. Then you have things where you can again go into your graphing. So anti-lock brake system, traction control, brake fluid lines, brake on off, for example. Let's press OK. And here you got your live results. Let's go into special functions. And special functions, there you go. You got a service bleeding function there. Depress the brake pedal and hold. Press OK to continue. Please wait a few seconds. This operation succeeded. Release the brake pedal. Lovely. Very good. And the last one is system selection. So this is where you're going to be able to run straight into the item that you particularly want rather than waiting for this to go and run the whole diagnostic. So for example, if I wanted to go straight into ABS, I can hit that there, go straight to it, saves a bit of time because it does take maybe 2 or 3 minutes to run that full check. Okay, so we go back out of this now. Are you sure you'd like to end the session? Yes. Whoa. Okay, well that noise is telling you to make sure that you unplug the cable because yes, it is easy to do that, to leave it in. But I tell you what, that's annoying. And I'm going to go into settings and try and work out how to turn that noise off because yeah, it's like an alarm clock. Right, let's go right the way back out. Let's go into service functions now. Have a little look at that and see. Look at all the things that this thing can do. ABS bleeding, adaptive front lighting, DPF regen. That's a great one because at the moment there's an awful lot of cars out there which are getting problems with the the diesel particle filter. That's what DPF is, and they get sooted up and it can cause a fault light to come on your dash. Let's go back out. Do not forget remove the VCI from the vehicle. Right, okay. But you can see there, not going to go through it all. You've got an awful lot, Windows calibration, transportation mode, that's interesting, isn't it? TPS reset, tyre reset, sunroof reset, injection coding's a good one, immobilizer reset. Remote diagnose is as it sounds. I can actually give this unit to somebody, or if somebody has one of these units, I can go into that and I can actually see what that person is looking at. So I can see through his unit what they are trying to diagnose on their vehicle. Okay, right, so I have my lovely launch X431 Pro and I've got my Autel. Let's plug them in. Today what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up a fault, I'm going to read it on their launch, I'm going to have a look at the menus and what this thing can offer. Then I'm going to compare it with the Autel and see if there's less or more menus and functionality. So let's have a little look and see. Right, so I'm just plugging in the OBD2. If you're wondering where it is on your car, legally wise, it has to be within 1 meter of any vehicle that you're in. Sometimes you might need to remove a panel. It's typically underneath where your footwell is. Sometimes it's in the middle here. One other thing about plugging in a cable, I've got a couple of diagnostics which use the same one, and I've sometimes made a mistake and plugged in the wrong brand of cable, and that can make a real difference. So just make sure you use the cable that came with the launch. Alrighty. There she is. Right, so let's go and straight into local diagnose. I'm going to find the car. You got options of putting your common one there, so I might just do that because Mercedes is a favourite of mine. And I'm going to go and find where it is. So there's Europe and Lamborghini. Yeah, I wish. There's Mercedes Benz. Right, let's hit that. Let's press OK. So that's then dropped it into the favourites. That's nice and easy to work out. All right, so let's select Mercedes. Gives you a overview and press OK. Make sure your key is turned on the ignition. I usually do it so that it's just before you crank the engine so that the lights are on the dash, etc. Straight away, what I like about this is it's a lovely big screen. Right, let's go into automatic search. There we go, it's already found the VIN. Now straight away, even though I've got another launch Creader and I've got my Autel, that found it super fast, so that's impressive. Now reading mileage from ECU, please wait. And as it will start to read and look at the different ECUs and modules, you'll hear certain things start to come on and off on the vents, etc. Now choose the year. For me, it's this middle one here. And everything looks good, so let's press OK. Right, so here we go. We've got your 3 reports. You've got your health report, just an overview on that. That's where it's going to find all of the faults on the car and all of the ECU and control units that this launch can actually see and talk to with the car. System scan does the same thing, but it doesn't actually give it in a report that you can send to the customer. System selection is where you go individually, say you want to go to an ABS module without having to do the full scan. Do you wish to carry out a quick test? Oh, that's interesting. Haven't seen that before. Well, let's press yes. Why not? Switch on ignition. It is. Okay. Scanning. In fact, the launch Creader, which is the sort of lower version of this, I'd say easily about 3 to 4 minutes. So let's let it run through its thing and I'll see you on the other side. As this is running through, one of the other nice things I've seen, it gives you a little battery level there. Quite often when you've got the key just before you crank it, you're going to use a bit of battery. So it's a good idea to start the engine sometimes. But also what I've noticed is this OBD2 cable is actually charging the unit. There's a green charge light just at the top there, which is nice. So you don't have to get a separate USB cable out. There we go. Actually, just what I mentioned about the voltage being low because I'm sat with the car. So that's a nice little warning there. Basically get the engine started and get it charged. So I'm going to do that just now. So what's it giving me here? Oh, okay. It's giving me a pretty comprehensive list. So this is called a quick scan, it says. We've got engine control module. There's a P2OB7-008, increased idle speed due to the SBC low voltage. SBC Sensortronic brake control, again that's probably down to low voltage. There we go, under voltage supply. ESP, electronic stability program. I've got 7 faults and these 7 faults are listed there below. ABS, anti-lock braking system, fault in CAN communication, fault in CAN communication unit A, instrument cluster, ESP, electronic stability program, etc, etc. So I've put these faults on the car on purpose. I've unplugged things, etc. So I was expecting to see that. Let's hope I can clear them now because I've purposely put the fault on. What's interesting here, it says ask for quick scan. So in my mind, there's actually 3 ways of doing it. You've got your health report where you can do a scan, send it to the customer, etc. Then you've got this quick scan, which I hadn't seen before, which kind of does the same thing. And then you've got system scan, which also does the same thing and provides the faults. Why there's 3 separate menus could be a bit confusing really, but you probably only need the one because all we're interested in is finding what the faults are. But nevertheless, the information's there. And there's an awful lot of faults here. So there's a button down here that says clear DTCs. You could clear it in one go, but I want to go into individual ones, and then I'm going to get my Autel Maxicom out and let's see what the differences are on the menus. So what's nice here is put all the faults at the top of the list. That's great, so I haven't got to go finding for it. What's the report? Oh, here we go. So actually you can send the report to the customer, as I mentioned before. So let's choose one here. Let's go to ESP, as we've got 7 faults on it. And what I want to do is I'm going to do a comparison now. I'm going to see if these 7 faults are all the same DTCs as we can see on the Autel. And then we're going to see when we go to clear it, if we go into each individual one, what this unit actually allows me to do. There's also, looks like a little Google search there, so you can look up the faults if you wanted to. Switch ignition on, which I have. Right, so it's gone into the first one there, and it's got refault codes, and it's given me now in another list, which is a bit more thorough, I guess. You've got a code search, so if you go on the internet, you can look it up. It tells you the actual stored DTCs. There's different colours here, which is interesting. I don't know what that signifies. They're all showing stored, so it'd be interesting to know what those colours are. Right, so what I'm going to do now, I've got 7 faults. I'm going to back out this program and then I'm going to get my Autel out and see what that has to say. Just keep going back, I guess. Would you like to end the diagnostic session? Yes. There's that really annoying, that I've got to take that off because that's really annoying. But it's saying basically remove the cable. Okay, right, we're back out the program. Let's unplug. And I'll get the Autel out. So, straight away, if I was to compare the side by side, you can see that there's a slight difference in size. To be fair though, the outer casing of the launch makes it look a little bit bigger, but the actual physical screen itself isn't that far away, but it is still a bigger screen on the launch. Right, she's powered up, and let's have a look to see what the Autel can say about the ESP. So let's go into diagnose. Again, I've got a same option here for favorites, which I've already stored as Mercedes-Benz. Automatic is going to find the car just like it did on the launch, and I press read. Now straight away, when I did it with the launch, it was within seconds. This seems to be taking its time, but it found it nevertheless. Okay, that's good. Now we're going to choose the year. That's the middle one, and it's a right-hand drive. That's interesting, it didn't say that on the launch, just as a comparison. It's got the car information here, and we press yes. So here we're giving me 3 options here, hot functions and vehicle profile, which is interesting, but it's not really a usable option, it's just information. So at the moment, it's pretty much like for like with the launch, but let's go into the diagnose. Now, compared to the launch, you had your 3 menus, you had your health report, you had your system scan, and you had your control unit where you go specifically. Here you just got the 2, which actually, to be fair, makes a little bit more sense to me, because after all, you only want to have an automatic scan or go directly to the control unit. And once you've done the automatic scan, you can still send that as a report to the customer. So let's go straight to control unit, because I don't want to spend 3 or 4 minutes unnecessarily going all the way through. You've now got these areas that you have to think about where the actual area of the car that you want to have a look at is. So it was the ESP, which is your stability program, which then talks obviously to the ABS. So for me, obviously it's not aircon, obviously it's not seats, obviously it's not communication, it's not possibly body or chassis. I would say drive, and that's where you have to kind of have a little thought of what's the most logical. Transmission, electronic selector module, let's try transmission. So actually, straight away, it's been a little bit more confusing using the Autel. The other one, when I went into the system, it tells me the modules, and it was quite obvious which ones to go in. Not quite the same with the Autel, so I'd say the launch is better in that sense. But let's go back, and I'm going to try and this time do a chassis and see if it's on that. Yeah, it's on the chassis side of it. I think actually, to be fair, I'd rather have it all listed like the launch rather than categorized like that. Right, so here we go. Here's your Sensortronic brake control, which there was a fault, I remember seeing that, and ESP, Electronic Stability Program, which within it we should see the ABS. So let's have a look. We had 7 faults on the launch. It definitely seems a little bit more laggy on the Autel, but not much, but it's not quite as quick. Right, ECU information, control unit adaptations. Let's go to trouble codes and see if we got 7 there. Right, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, that's interesting, isn't it? Straight away, we got less faults, which kind of makes me think that has the launch found more. Let's go escape that, just see if there's no other information. SBC, let's see if there's 2 faults in that to make up the 7. Well, there's an undervoltage supply, but that makes only 6 in my mind. Let's see what the active test has to say. Speed sensitive power steering. Okay. Live data. Let's have a look and see. So we can see 7 items there. Others. What's others? All right. We got tire pressure loss warning. So it's giving me here live information, which is nice, but it's also bringing up information which isn't relative to this car because I don't have it. So let's go to RPM sensor, for example. And here we go. Look, you can check your speeds for your ABS sensor. I've actually done a video before where I had a fault in my rear right speed sensor, and this Autel is going to be able to see what those speeds are. And I'm sure the launch would do exactly the same. And we got some live bi-directional testing here. You got your parking brake switch. So if I was to press that now, put my foot on it, there we go. It says on. And likewise, if I was to pull the lever to release the parking brake, we should see that go off. And there we go. Okay. So we did the health report before, and it says, do you want to do a quick test? So I said yes, but if I say no, there's no other option. So why that comes up, I'm not entirely sure. But let's go into system scan this time, and let's carry that out. Switch on ignition, which it is, press OK. So now it's going to run through in the same way all the modules that this car, like it says, equipped, can talk to with the launch, and any ones which don't, and I know the Distronic I haven't got, that's going to say not equipped. There we go. So again, let it run through its thing, and I'll see you on the other side. So the system scan is completed. It takes about the same time, and you can see here the word equipped. It hasn't listed anything that's not equipped, which is great, which is fine, but what it's not telling you straight away is which, if any of these, there's any faults with. So on the system scan, the difference between that and the health report is it runs through and sees all the control units that the launch is going to talk to with the car. But then you have to go into them each and individually to work out if you've got any fault codes. It doesn't tell you straight away from the screen which one, if any, you've got any faults with. So I'm trying to think to myself, how is that useful? Really, you would just go into the health scan, because it then gives you both all the control units the car can talk to with the launch, and it tells you the faults. So that's a bit of a puzzling one there. But anyway, let's get some codes cleared. But let's go into ESP, because I know there was a couple of faults there. So I'll click onto that, switch on ignition, which it is, and then read the fault code. And there we go. There's your 2 faults. So let's go, and you can press report there. You can send it to a customer. So let's go back and let's go clearing fault codes. Yes. It's going to say turn the ignition off and on. So let's turn it off. Yes. And back on again. And it says it's cleared, and let's go and read the fault codes. And there we go. No faults found. So I'm just going to clear all the faults now. I appreciate that the video is getting a bit lengthy, and I'll try and keep it short and concise. But one of the things that I really want to show you is the bi-directional ability, and let's have a little play with that and see. So first of all the codes, thankfully, they're now all cleared. So let's choose a unit to go into. Let's try the Parktronic here. So switch on ignition, yes it is. Right, let's do some actuation tests or special function. Let's start with special function. reading code and change if necessary. So that'd be good. So if you've got a new control unit, you can swap the coding over. Let's go to actuation test. And we got, here we go, PTS warning display instrument panel center. So that's the one that is up at the front there. And the rear one is this little fella just here. So let's start with the rear. And here we got these different options here. Just read what it says. So F3 is the left warning element. Test image complete, actuated. F4 is the left warning element, which is the checkerboard test, and so on and so on. So if I press F3 here, then it shows the left hand side, which is showing on my right, but it's the left back corner and it's beeping away. Let's press F4. There, it gives me the checkerboard. And if I press F5, then it's doing the other side. Checkerboard for the other side. And F7 turns it off. Likewise, if I go into the front and I press F4, goes to the checkerboard. There's the other side and the checkerboard. Press S7 to go off. So that's a really handy little test, because let's say you've got a problem, you're not too sure whether it's your parking sensor, your control module for the parking sensors, or maybe you've got a dodgy wire between these two visuals. Now you can actually test it, so you can roll out one and continue doing your troubleshooting. So let's try another one. Let's go into instrument cluster, switch on ignition, and let's have a little look at the actuation tests and see what you can do. So let's start with the top one. So this is a nice one. Some of the like Audis and BMWs sweep the dials all the way, and Mercedes for that matter. This car is 20 years old, but nevertheless, let's see if we can do that, where we can sweep the dials all the way around just to make sure we're getting that full range of motion. Ooh. Let's do a bulb test to make sure that they're all working. So let's turn off the ignition first, obviously, otherwise the bulbs are already on. Right, so I'm going to press F3 now. There they all are. That's not me using the key, that's just pressing the button. So we can see that there's no bulbs that are out. F12 off. Let's try the buzzer, F3. So there's loads of actuation tests that you can do with the Launch X431 Pro Elite. But I'm conscious I don't want the video to get too long, so I'm going to go back into the garage now and I'm going to have a little final thought on the differences between the Autel Maxicom M808 and my little Launch X431 Pro. So certainly they're very much a similar product. Even looking at the presentation, the way that they got these boxes here, they are very close to one another. But the actual screen that you see, there's quite a thick border around the outside compared to the Autel, which actually looks smaller. But when you look at the screen, there's not too much actually in the visual. Having said that, I need glasses, and the bigger the screen, any little bit helps for me. They both got this excellent little stand at the back, ideal when you're in the workshop or if you want to hook it on the steering wheel. One of the things for me though is that this is very much talking about extra devices that you can plug in. It talks about there's a video scope, there's an oscilloscope. Haven't quite looked into whether you can get that for the Autel. I'm sure that you can, but this is seen to me as something that you're going to be perhaps using more in a professional workshop. It's also got its own camera on the back. They've both got Wi-Fi, they've both got Bluetooth capabilities. That's handy, especially if you're running a report and you want to send it directly from the unit to the customer. So let's go on to talking about those reports. When I went into the menu on the Launch, it was quite familiar because I've actually done a video using the Launch Creader Elite, which they very kindly sent me, and it shows those three levels: the health report, the system scan, and then there's a manual selection. So if you're familiar with Launch, then it's nice to have that on another device because you know where you are. But actually using that to find out what the faults are, I found that there's kind of a couple of ways, I think there might even be 3 ways of finding the same information. And I do kind of think to myself, well, it's a bit confusing, just give me one option to be able to find the faults and bring up that detail. On the Autel though, it's a lot more straightforward. You have automatic scan or manual search. Automatic is going to run the report, it's going to see all the devices that this can talk to on the car, it's going to tell you those fault codes. On the Launch, you have to kind of think about it because there's different ways of finding that same information. However, where the Launch I think was better than the Autel was when you went into that manual selection, because on the manual selection On the Autel, it gave it to you in a category. So you have things like chassis, transmission, communications. So you have to think to yourself, well, I've got an ABS problem. Is that to do with the transmission? Potentially. Is it on the chassis? Could be. On the launch, it actually goes straight into the individual item. It lists it all. It says ABS, it says communications to the radio, for example. It's a lot more black and white and obvious. And I actually went into the wrong menu at first on the Autel, had to back out of it and then go and try the other one. So for me, I think it was much more straightforward actually going into it manually when I used the launch. In terms of when I actually got into those menus and had a look and seeing what you can do, I found the launch seemed to have just those few more to have a look at and play with. I love the way it did the bi-directional control, of which they both do, but we did a test on the parking sensors and we could see the coloured indication and work out whether the front and the rear on the Mercedes SL was actually good, whether there was any LEDs out, for example. You can also do things such as the seat movement. Maybe you've got a problem that it's not quite behaving itself. I've had it before in a Mercedes where the actual switch, I couldn't work out, was that at fault or was it the motor on the seat to move it? It turned out it was a dirty contact on the switch. And by plugging in one of these two devices, you can actuate the motors on the seat and move it backwards and forwards. You just got to be a bit careful if you sat in it because it can squash you, so just be careful on that. I think what to take away from this is that it's aimed towards a professional setup. People that have their own garages, etc., and they want to be able to diagnose pretty much any car that comes in. They know they've got something that can then talk to that car. The Autel also does a huge amount of cars, but I need to actually look into it and exactly see how many cars it can do. What I do know is that this does over 1,000 different types of car, over 100 different brands. It's got the ability, got the camera on the back. You can do remote setup on this as well, so that if this is in another area in the workshop or maybe it's in another part of town, you can actually connect onto it with the remote diagnostic and you can see what the person on the other end of the screen is looking at. I think for the price, we're looking at perhaps about £150 in difference. This is around about £500 and I'm negotiating with launch and hopefully there'll be a discount link coming. So have a look in my description. Be able to get one of these a little bit cheaper, hopefully. And I think for the price of what it is, these sorts of diagnostics with the ability to what these can do is actually normally in the £1,000 range. This at the moment is around about £500. So if you've got a couple of cars, yes, this can do about 998 other cars as well. And you think to yourself, why do I need to have a unit that can do so many different cars? For the price of what it is, why not? Because then you can go and help your friends, you can go and help your neighbors. I think that's what it's all about, isn't it? Helping other people, which is why I do this channel. There's a lot more that this launch can do. And if you want to know something specific, you're not too sure if it's quite right for you, let me know down below and I'll do my very best to perhaps do a video just for you. So I hope you found this helpful. There's a lovely little place at the end with all the diagnostic videos that I do, and you can go and have a look at my favorite little iCar soft. I've got the launch Creader, great bit of kit considering the price of what that was, £150, and there's also discount links on that as well. And for the size of what this does, it's brilliant, it really is. And likewise, I've also got one for the Autel, and now most recently, here's the launch. Thanks very much for watching. I'll see you on the next one.